Minimum wage. Labor faults Tinubu's speech, insists on N250k. Federal government urges caution to avoid retrenchment. Further economic crisis. Nigeria Labour Congress, NLC, has voiced its concerns over President Bola Tinubu's statement during yesterday's Democracy Day address, in which he painted a picture of harmonious and successful wage review negotiations. The leadership of Labour highlighted discrepancies between the president's remarks and the actual proceedings of the national minimum wage negotiations. According to a statement signed by the NLC acting president, Comrade Adewale Adeyanju, while President Tinubu's address painted a picture of harmonious and successful wage negotiations, the reality, as experienced by the NLC, tells a different story. The Labour leader asserted that no agreement had been reached on the base figure for a new national minimum wage or its components, contrary to the president's claims. He said that the organized labor's steadfast position is a demand for a minimum wage of N250,000, which they consider a significant concession made by Nigerian workers during the negotiation process. The NLC expressed surprise at the president's announcement of an agreement and suggested that he might have been misled into believing that a consensus had been reached with the NLC and the Trade Union Congress of Nigeria, TUC. Adeyanju also refuted any claims of intimidation or harassment during the negotiations, contrary to the president's peaceful and cooperative approach narrative. Rather, the Labour Center alleged that its leaders were surrounded by armed soldiers and subjected to media propaganda aimed at intimidating them, orchestrated by senior government officials. He further stated that the NLC remains hopeful that President Tinubu will honor his democratic principles and the promises made to Nigerian workers by preparing an executive bill that truly offers a living wage to workers. They urged the president to reject advice from those seeking to undermine the country's workers' welfare and fulfill his pledge to lift them out of poverty. The NLC further called for a stronger democratic nation built on equity and prosperity for the majority, rather than a select few. The union reiterated its commitment to justice, equity, and fairness for all Nigerians and said it looked to the president to demonstrate his commitment to these values through his actions, especially on the national minimum wage. FG urges caution to avoid retrenchments, further economic crisis. Meanwhile, the federal government has urged organized labor to settle for a national minimum wage that will not undermine the national economy and lead to a massive retrenchment of workers. The Minister of Information and National Orientation, Muhammad Idris, who made this appeal while declaring open the 2024 Synod of the Charismatic Bishops' Conference of Nigeria in Abuja on Wednesday, stressed the need for a realistic and sustainable wage system that balances workers' needs with the country's economic realities. He acknowledged the government's commitment to reviewing the minimum wage, but cautioned against demands that could harm the economy. Idris highlighted the government's efforts to reduce the cost of living and increase Nigerians' purchasing power through programs like the Presidential Compressed Natural Gas (CNG) initiative, which aims to cut transportation costs by 50%. He said, "As I have repeatedly said, the federal government is not opposed to the increase of wages for Nigerian workers, but we keep on advocating for a realistic and sustainable wage system for the workers, a wage system that will not undermine the economy, lead to mass retrenchment of workers, and jeopardize the welfare of about 200 million Nigerians." We want the labor unions to understand that the relief that Nigerians are expecting, and that they fully deserve, will not come only in the form of an increase in wages. It will also come as efforts to reduce the cost of living and to ensure that more money stays in the pockets of Nigerians, and this is where programs like the Presidential CNG initiative come in. By replacing or complementing petrol usage with CNG, that program alone will cut transportation costs by as much as 50%. The minister appealed to the clergy to support President Bola Ahmed Tinubu's vision for Nigeria's renaissance and to pray for wisdom and guidance as the country navigates its current challenges. Indeed, the Church, throughout our nation's history, has been a steadfast partner to the government in championing social causes and providing essential social services such as hospitals and schools, as well as inculcating values in our citizens. Even as we go through the temporary but necessary hardships, the President is not resting on his oars. He is determined to ensure that as many relief and palliative measures as possible are rolled out for the benefit of every segment of the Nigerian population. The Information Minister appealed for the clerics' support in the nation-building effort. Now, this is where you, as clergy, as deeply respected religious leaders and influential voices, come in. As a government, we need your support, advice, and feedback. We also need you to be aware of the efforts being made and the challenges being faced so that you can help us communicate these to your congregations and the general public, he said. Noting that President Tinubu came to power at the most challenging time for Nigeria, Idris said that the president is working assiduously to ensure sustainable development across the country. He said, "There is no doubt that Mr. President stepped up with great courage and responsibility. In the last year, he has implemented crucial and comprehensive reforms to steer our country back toward growth, prosperity, and sustainable development." President Tinubu has never shied away from acknowledging the reality of these pains. In his Democracy Day address delivered to the nation, President Tinubu summed it up very aptly. "The reforms we have initiated are intended to create a stronger, better foundation for future growth." There is no doubt the reforms have occasioned hardship. Yet, they are necessary repairs to fix the economy over the long run so that everyone has access to economic opportunity, fair pay, and compensation for his endeavors and labor. Indeed, we are enduring short-term sacrifice for long-term benefits as a nation. We are inspired by the bigger picture of a Nigeria where no one is left behind. Idris hinted that his ministry would collaborate with the clergymen in implementing the National Orientation Program, the National Values Charter, which seeks to ingrain enduring values and morals in the hearts and minds of our citizens, he said. In his speech, Archbishop Leonard Bachakawas, the national president of the Charismatic Bishop Conference, pledged unalloyed loyalty and support to President Tinubu's administration, stressing that they would continue to partner with the government to achieve its vision for Nigeria. He clarified that they invited the minister, who is a Muslim, to declare their conference open because they saw in him a detribalized Nigerian who harbors no religious biases. Archbishop Kawas further disclosed that bishops from the 36 states of the Federation and 21 countries were attending the conference.
Hello and welcome to The World Now. It's Nigeria's Democracy Day, and President Tinubu has paid tributes to the country's heroes and key players in the political space who fought for the country's democracy. In his Democracy Day speech, President Tinubu assured that he will soon send the executive bill on the new minimum wage to the National Assembly. We captured highlights of Mr. President's address.
In his Democracy Day address, President Bola Tinubu acknowledged the economic challenges facing the nation, assuring Nigerians that his administration is keenly aware of the difficulties they face and is actively implementing reforms to establish a stronger, more resilient foundation for future growth and development.
The economic difficulties we face as a nation right now, our economy has been in desperate need of reform for decades. It has been unbalanced because it was built on the flawed foundations and over-reliance on revenue from exploitation of oil. The reforms we have initiated are intended to create a stronger, better foundation for future growth.
Regarding the new national minimum wage, President Tinubu announced that an executive bill encapsulating the agreed-upon provisions will soon be transmitted to the National Assembly for consideration.
We have negotiated in good faith and with open arms with organized labor on a new national minimum wage. We shall soon send our executive bill to the National Assembly to enshrine what has been agreed upon as part of our law for the next 5 years or less.
President paid tribute to the sacrifices of those who lost their lives in the struggle for true democracy. He recognized the country's 25-year journey into democracy, commending key players and institutions for establishing a tradition of transparent, open and fair elections, as well as peaceful transitions of government.
We lost great heroes and heroines along the way. In this struggle, the winner of June 12, 1993 presidential election, Chief MKO Abiola, the most significant symbol of our democratic struggle, his wife, Kudirat, General Shehu Musa Yar'Adua, and Pa Alfred Iwani, amongst others, sacrificed their very lives.
President Tinubu emphasized that democracy, despite its complexities and challenges, remains the best form of governance, fostering economic growth, social justice, and human development.
Thanks for tuning in to Smart Okason TV show. Keep exploring, stay curious, and never stop getting the latest information happening around. Don't forget to like, comment, subscribe, and share to keep the intellect flowing. Until next time, keep sharpening and be smart.